Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel Bandy's Books, and today we're here to talk December TBR. Guys, December 2024, what is going on? It's the last month of this year. I have no idea where this year has gone. Every time I blink, a month passes. It is just insanity. This has been one of the fastest years of my life, I think. And I'm realizing as I say this that I must sound like a really old person, but genuinely, it's the truth. So December, I've got a couple things. First of all, you may have noticed here that the video quality is a little bit different than my usual, and maybe that the lighting is a little bit different. So I was really lucky earlier this year to be included in the YouTube Creator Perks program. And through that program, I received a $100 credit towards the new GoPro that was coming out. So I treated myself to the GoPro Hero 13 Creators package, and it's really cool. It comes with a little microphone and a light and a little tripod and some different options that I have like a GoPro Hero 5 did not have. So the upgrade on this was pretty insane. I'm really looking forward to getting used to filming with this and playing with this and learning how to make better video content. So that's what that shift is. And then I haven't been that active the last couple months. I had some health stuff. Then I switched jobs. I've been working on training and catching up. I've also recently enrolled in college for the first time in 20 years, which is a really big thing for me. So I'll be going back to school in the spring. Very, very exciting. And there's just been a lot going on, so I haven't had a chance to film as many videos as I've wanted. But now that I have this creators package, I'm feeling like I really need to sit down and use it. And my time is starting to even out a bit more. So I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things and filming a few more videos. So let's start with this TBR and then let's go on from there. As always, I give a little disclaimer. If you hear some snoring in the background, that's my dog Luna. You can't see her at the moment, but she's literally asleep here next to my knee. She's not snoring at the moment, but sometimes she does snore in the background of the video. So if you're new, don't be alarmed. I don't have like a person snoring behind my camera. That being said, December TBR, what are we doing? Each month I theme out my TBRs just because I kind of like to plan what I'm reading. I usually will pick out between 20 and 30 books of a specific theme, a specific genre, and then I kind of mood read from those 20 or 30 books. So how I'm gonna plan my TBR for the month of December this year is that I'm gonna split my TBR between some of my Netgalley arcs that I need to catch up on and books specifically from Book of the Month and Aardvark Book Club, because let's be real, I have ordered quite a few of them and many of them are sitting on my shelf unread. Also, Book of the Month does this challenge where if you crush a certain amount of books off of your shelf, then you get a little prize. And I've already won the first prize, but I'm trying to win the second prize. And I have to hit 30 books read by the end of the year to get that, and I'm 2 books short. So I have a list of Netgalley arcs that I'm going to talk about first, and then we'll go into the physical TBR, which is comprised specifically of Aardvark and Book of the Month. So the first of my Netgalley arcs that I would like to catch up on in December is Untethered by Angela Jackson Brown. This is a historical fiction set in 1967 Troy, Alabama. Katia Daniels is struggling under the weight of her responsibility towards the boys that she cares for in a boys' home, her romantic entanglement with an older gentleman, and her role caring for her mother and her younger brothers after her twin brother goes missing in action in Vietnam and her father dies of cancer. She grapples with the things that she wants for herself as her ideas for her future change drastically. After that, I have Private Rights by Julia Armfield. This is one of those books that I was really looking forward to in 2024. I really liked Our Wives Under the Sea, and I can't wait to see what Armfield does for her follow-up. This book follows 3 sisters after the death of their father. These 3 sisters had kind of a contentious relationship, weren't very close, and have been forced back together by dealing with the family secrets. Eventually, the fragile bond that they've built with each other is shattered by a revelation in their father's will. Then I have Kingdom of No Tomorrow by Fabienne Josephat. This is a historical fiction set in 1968 Oakland, California. Nettie Beaulieu joins the Black Panthers free health clinics in Oakland and is swept up in a love affair with Melvin Mosley, the defense captain of the Black Panther Party. When they head to Chicago to launch the Illinois chapter, they find themselves the target of J. Edgar Hoover's campaign against civil rights leaders. Soon, Nettie discovers that civil rights doesn't always mean equal rights for women. After that, I have Lazarus Man by Richard Price. I hate to say this, but I guess this book falls into historical fiction because it's set in East Harlem in 2008. This book follows the story of a 5-story tenement building collapsing in East Harlem. Ash spread everywhere. First responders respond immediately, but at the end of the day, many of the tenants are still missing, and I think this explores what happens after that. This is a book that I haven't heard that much about. I was aware of it coming out because of Book of the Month predictions, and it sounded really interesting, but I still haven't really heard any reviews of it, so I'm really interested to check it out. Then I have The Last Hour Between Worlds by Melissa Caruso. This has a summary that I can't really summarize very well, so I'm actually just gonna read it directly to you because there's a lot going on. Pembrel Thorne has a few hours away from her newborn, and she's determined to enjoy herself at the year-turning ball. But when guests start dropping dead, she can't help sniffing out trouble. She's a hound after all. Especially when her professional and personal nemesis, notorious burglar Rika Nunsuch, is also on the prowl. Everyone knows you shouldn't get involved with echo games, let alone one involving echo lords who can turn layers of reality into a game board with human lives for pieces. But as the ballroom grows stranger and more otherworldly with each strike of the hour, it's clearly too late. Cam knows the rules. One echo down is no big deal. Stay alert for trouble. 4 echoes down, there are things with eyes in their teeth and the walls that drip blood. 4 is the limit. As the party plunges through increasingly deadly realities, the rules can't help Kem anymore. She'll have to rely on her wits, and Rika, to unravel the most dangerous game of the century before it unleashes catastrophe on their world. So this was a book that was featured by Book of the Month a month or two back, and it was one that I was interested in. The summary of it sounds kind of interesting, really unique, and it's one of those books that I feel like could have been either really good or really bad, and I was kind of waiting to hear some feedback. So far, most of the feedback that I've been reading has been pretty solid, and so I thought I would request the audio ARC and give it a try. And then I have The Shutouts by Gabrielle Korn. So this is book number 2 in the world of Yours for the Taking. This is an eco-apocalypse type book. Hey, why are we snoring? Hey, why are we snoring? You're sitting up, why are we snoring? So the world has already faced ecological collapse. There are massive hurricanes, dust storms, just you name it. Climate change is wreaking havoc. And most of privileged society is living in these pods that are protected from the outside world. But there are still people here on Earth trying to exist and facing just extreme odds. This book is going to be following 3 different women at 2 different time periods as they try to cross the United States and all of the different difficulties that they have to overcome to do so. I enjoyed Yours for the Taking. It wasn't a perfect book for me, but overall I really enjoyed what Korn was trying to do. There were definitely some things that I would have tweaked, some things I would have done different, but not enough so that I won't read the second book. And then when I saw it up for an audio ARC on Netgalley, I was like, I definitely want to check this out. So this is one of the Netgalley arcs I'm looking forward to catching up. Then I have Sorcery and Small Magics by Mega Ducey. Levander Lovage is a master of small magics, but after a disastrous mishap with a forbidden spell, he finds himself bound to his personal nemesis, Sebastian Grimm. They need a counterspell fast and are forced to work together to find a powerful sorcerer in the Unquiet Wood, a forest infested with murderous monsters and dangerous outlaws alike. This book came across my radar with one of my Book of the Month predictions. This sounded like such a cute, cozy sort of a read. I love a good fantasy. I think there's definitely going to be a little bit of a romance arc in here, which I don't mind when it's a subplot in the story. And I'm really kind of enjoying some of these cozy reads this year, so I don't mind mixing this one in. Then I have The City of Glass by Nevo. Demon Vitrine loves the city of Azrael. For generations, she's built it into a city of desire and joy. Then angels come and the city falls. Vitrine is left with nothing but memories and a book containing the names of those that she's lost. Oh, and an angel who is now bound by her mad, grief-stricken curse to haunt the city that he burned. This is a book I'm really looking forward to. Nevo is kind of hit and miss for me because they come up with such interesting, unique concepts. This is one that has a really unique concept. When their writing hits for me, it really hits. So I'm hoping this is going to be one that I really enjoy. Then I have Badlands by Karina Chong. Regina is a socially awkward loner who is content to live an isolated life with her pet bunny. When after 7 years, her brother Ricky and his unusual 6-year-old daughter named Jez show up on her doorstep unannounced. It's clear that something bad has happened, but the truth won't surface easily. This is a book that came across my radar just kind of as I was scanning through Netgalley, and it sounded really interesting to me. I liked the cover of it and everything. After that, I have The River Knows My Name by Mortada Gazar. This book is set in Basra, Iraq. 15-year-old Charlotte is coming of age. She craves an adventure, and so she packs up a few meaningful items and runs away from home. With the help of 2 mission sisters, one of them guides the lost, Charlotte embarks on a quest steeped in local lore, and she may finally have the opportunity to solidify her own identity. Then I have The Deaf Girl by Abigail Herringer. So this is Abigail's memoir of being a shy, introverted young girl and dealing with deafness and learning how to be her own fiercest advocate. Herringer is most famous for being on ABC's The Bachelor, where she was a fan favorite. And this is just about some of her experiences and how she got to that point. I can't say that I've ever watched The Bachelor. It's not a show that really interests me, but I am interested in her story and learning a bit more about her experiences. And finally, I have The Indian Card by Carrie Lowry Schupeltz. This was a book that was on my TBR in November, and I unfortunately didn't get to it, but it's a book that sounds really interesting. So this book is going to be talking about Indigenous identity, specifically how claims of Indigenous ancestry in the United States are through the roof, while tribal enrollment still remains relatively low. It talks about blood quantum requirements and how people track their Indigenous ancestry. And I'm really interested in learning more about this specific topic. I know a little bit about the blood quantum specifics of some tribes, and I am familiar with how many people claim that they have Indigenous ancestors and the reality of that statistic. But I think that there is a lot of this conversation that I'm missing, and I'm really curious to learn more. So that is the end of the Netgalley specific portion of this TBR, and that's not to say that I won't necessarily read any of the other books that are on my Netgalley shelf. Those are just the ones that I think are at the top of my list to get to as soon as possible. Next, I'm talking about the books that I have from Aardvark Book Club. This is my Aardvark stack that is unread so far. I am really excited about these books because honestly, a couple of the books that I got from Aardvark this year have been some of my favorite reads of the year, and I'm hoping that some of these are going to be too. So the first of my Aardvark specific books is Dreadful by Caitlin Rozakis. This is a book that I wasn't really sure about. It sounds really quirky and interesting. It is about a guy named Gav who wakes up in this castle and realizes that he's a dreadlord of all these goblins and everything, and he's not really sure how he got there or what's going on. It sounds like it's going to be kind of snarky, kind of fun, right up my alley in terms of humor, and I love a good fantasy, so I decided to give this one a chance. I don't know if I'm gonna love it or I'm gonna hate it. Hopefully it'll work for me. After that, I have Perfume and Pain by Anna Dorn. This is a LGBTQIA literary fiction, and this is about Astrid Dahl, who is a novelist who gets freshly canceled, finds herself back in Sapphic Scribes, the Zoom writers group she co-founded before she was published. It's a fate worse than death. It almost feels like nothing will get her writing again, not even her love of perfume. But she temporarily forgets all that by throwing herself into a few sexy distractions. First, there's Ivy, a PhD student researching 1950s lesbian pulp fiction, and then Penelope, a nosy neighbor living off of Urban Outfitters settlement money. I've heard some good reviews of this, and I'm hoping that I'll really enjoy this. I've been on a lit fic kick this year, so I think this is right up my alley. After that, I have Baby X by Kira Pykoff. So this is a science fiction that features a world where you can use any cell from any person to create eggs or sperm and develop a baby based on that person's genetic DNA. And so in this world, celebrities have to hire security to protect themselves from having their DNA stolen to genetically engineer babies. And I believe this follows a celebrity and his security guard as they try to prevent this specific thing from happening. Sounds like fun. I really enjoy sci-fi. It's not like my primary genre, but every time I dive into one, I'm like, why don't I read more science fiction? And so this was a pick where I was like, let me add a little bit more science fiction to my shelf. And I have Where I End by Sophie White. Eileen is cursed. She has no friends, never gone to school. She's never left this windswept craggy isle off the coast of Ireland. Her mother is cursed, a silent wreck Eileen calls the bed thing. Alongside her grandmother, Eileen's days are an endless monotony of feeding, changing, and caring for the bed thing. Their island seems cursed, whispering secrets only Eileen hears. Then Rachel, a vivacious artist from the mainland, arrives with her colicky newborn. Rachel arouses yearnings Eileen cannot fully comprehend. Soon the unfolding of her mother's secret tragedy and Eileen's pursuit of her own dark desires are both destined to unleash a maelstrom upon all three of their lives. So this sounds really good. I think this is going to be kind of a gothic horror, maybe a little bit of psychological thriller mixed in. Definitely something I'm looking forward to reading. Then I have The New Life by Tom Crew. This was a book that Aardvark gifted me way back when. They sent me a free box so I could try them out when they were like a relatively new company. And they curated 3 specific books that they thought would fit my reading style. This was one of their picks, and honestly, it sounds really good. I don't know why I haven't read it yet because it really does sound sound like something that I would enjoy. In London in the summer of 1894, John Addington and Henry Ellis began collaborating on a book arguing that what they call sexual inversion is natural, harmless, and should be decriminalized. John is a wealthy scholar with 3 grown daughters and a wife, Catherine, who has come to accept his attraction to men, but can barely resign herself to his relationship with a working-class printer named Frank. Henry is young and progressive, a member of the forward-thinking Society of New Life, and he and his wife Edith intend to have a new, freer kind of marriage, though Henry still feels slighted when Edith starts spending more time with a friend than with him. When Oscar Wilde is arrested just before John and Henry's book is to be published, each man must decide whether to risk ostracism and jail, as well as the happiness of those they love, or give up on the project. Sounds fantastic. I love historical fiction. I especially love when it covers something that I know very little about. There's a lot of interesting topics that are going to be covered in here. I think this is going to cover a lot of deep themes. I really like that there's going to be a discussion of what is considered a normal marriage at the time and what breaks the rules of society. I'm looking forward to getting into this. And then in that same box, I had The Dream Builders by Owendrilla Mukherjee. This was a book that they curated for me as well that I feel like really fits, again, my tastes, the type of books that I like. And for some reason, I started it a while back, read a couple chapters, and then set it down. There was nothing wrong with it. I wasn't bored with it. I just got distracted, I think. That happens once in a while where I get into a book, set it down, and it's like my brain kind of short circuits and goes in a different direction. So after living in the US for years, Manika Roy returns home to India to mourn the loss of her mother and finds herself in a new world. The booming city of Harishpur, where her father now lives, is nothing like the part of the country where she grew up, and the more she sees of this new sparkling city, the more she learns that nothing and no one here is as it appears. Ultimately, it will take an unexpected tragic event for Manika and those around her to finally understand just how fragile life is in this city built on aspirations. Sounds fantastic. I like that there's maybe this like family drama element. It sounds like there might be a little bit of a thriller element. Again, I just got to get back into this. It was actually really enjoyable when I started it, and now I want to finish it. And my final Aardvark book is When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson. So I was oddly really excited when they picked this last month. I have another book by Jandy Nelson on my shelf. I have never read their writing before. It's been sitting on my shelf for a long time, but both of their books sound really interesting and like books that I know I'm going to enjoy once I get into them. There's no rhyme or reason to this. It's honestly just a vibe for me. The Fall siblings live in hot Northern California wine country where the sun pours out of the sky and the devil winds blow so hard they whip the sense right out of your head. Years ago, the Fall kids' father mysteriously disappeared, cracking the family into pieces. Now Dizzy Fall, age 12, bakes cakes, sees spirits, and wishes she were a heroine of a romance novel. Miles Fall, 17, brainiac, athlete, and dog whisperer, is a raving beauty, but also lost and desperate to meet the kind of guy he dreams of. And Winton Fall, 19, who raises the temperature of a room just by entering it, is a virtuoso violinist set to crash course for fame or self-destruction. Then an enigmatic rainbow-haired girl shows up, tipping the Falls world over. She might be an angel or a saint or an ordinary girl. Somehow she is vital to each of them. But before anyone can figure out who she is, catastrophe strikes, leaving the Falls more broken than ever and more desperate to be whole. Sounds like fun. I love this cover of this book as well. I'm super into just like bright colors like this. So something about this just calls to me, and hopefully this will really work out. So now on to my book of the month selections. These are just the book of the month books that I've picked up that I haven't read yet, and you'll see that there are a good handful more than I have from Aardvark, and that's just because I have had book of the month longer than I've had Aardvark. Aardvark is relatively new, and so I have less books that I've purchased from them so far. But right now I would say I'm kind of in a dead heat. I average about the same amount of books from Aardvark and book of the month every month, or sometimes I even end up with 1 or 2 more books from Aardvark than I do from book of the month. So it's been kind of interesting seeing how things are shaking out. So first of my book of the month selections is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. So I have heard that this is just a phenomenal exploration of grief. This follows Lee Chen Sanders after her mother's suicide. She's absolutely certain about one thing, that when her mother died, she turned into a bird. Lee, who is half Asian and half white, travels to Taiwan to meet her maternal grandparents for the first time. There she is determined to find her mother, the bird. In her search, she winds up chasing after ghosts, uncovering family secrets, and forging a new relationship with her grandparents. And as she grieves, she must try to reconcile the fact that on the same day that she kissed her best friend and longtime secret crush, Axel, her mother was taking her own life. After that, I have My Murder by Katie Williams. This was a sci-fi thriller that I picked up a while back. I also started this one, got a couple chapters in and set it down. Same thing, wasn't a bad book, was enjoying the writing, thought it was interesting so far. I got distracted. Lou is a happily married mother of an adorable toddler. She's also the victim of a local serial killer. Recently brought back to life and returned to her grieving family by a government project, she is grateful for this second chance. But as the new Lou adapts to her old routine and as she bonds with other female survivors, she realizes that disturbing questions remain about what exactly preceded her death and how much she can really trust those around her. This sounds super interesting, also super creepy. I feel like this is something that would be terrifying to the majority of women because you are thrust back into an environment but not sure who killed you in the first place. Definitely think this is going to explore some complex and interesting themes. Then we have A Short Walk Through a Wide World by Douglas Westerby. Paris, 1885, Aubrey Trouvel, a spoiled and stubborn 9-year-old girl, comes across a wooden puzzle ball on her walk home from school. She tosses it over a fence only to find it in her backpack that evening. Days later, at the family dinner table, she starts to bleed to death. When medical treatment only makes her worse, she flees the outskirts of the city where she realizes that it is the very act of movement that keeps her alive. So it begins her lifelong journey around the world, constantly on the run from her disease, which won't allow her to stay anywhere more than a few days. This sounds like a really interesting concept. I love this idea of this person that has to keep moving or else she might die. I don't think I've ever seen that done before, and I'm curious to see what Westerbeek is going to do with this story. And then I have The Moor's Account by Leila Lalami. This is a book I've been wanting to read for a long time. The cover is stunning. It has been one of my display books down here in my dark blues, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to it yet. In this stunning work of historical fiction, Leila Lalami brings us the imagined memoirs of the first Black explorer of America, a Moroccan slave whose testimony was left out of the official record. In 1527, the conquistador Panfilo de Narvaez sailed from the port of Sanlúcar de Barrameda with a crew of 600 men and nearly 100 horses. His goal was to claim what is now the Gulf Coast of the United States for the Spanish crown, and in the process become as wealthy and famous as Hernan Cortes. But from the moment the Narvaez expedition landed in Florida, it faced peril, navigational errors, disease, starvation, as well as resistance from indigenous tribes. Within a year, there were only 4 survivors. The expedition's treasurer, Cabeza de Vaca, a Spanish nobleman named Alonso de Castillo, a young explorer named Andres Dorantes, and Dorantes' Moroccan slave, Mustafa al-Samori, who the other 3 Spaniards call Estebanico. These 4 survivors would go on to make a journey across America that would transform them from proud conquistadores to humble servants, from fearful outcasts to faith healers. This sounds really interesting. I have heard nothing but good things about Lalami's writing, and I'm really excited to finally get into this one. And then I have 2 books from Immortelles. I'm not sure that I'm going to read both of these in this month because honestly they're both kind of chunkers, and I may have to prioritize one or the other, so we will see how that goes. I have The Lincoln Highway and I have Table for Two. So I've also started The Lincoln Highway. Before I got this book, tried it on audiobook. I think I listened to like maybe 3 or 4 chapters and found it not the right book for audiobook. Unfortunately, just the audio for me was very dull. And sometimes that happens like with historical fiction. It's like a little too dry for an audio. So I'm gonna try reading this physical copy, but as you can see, it's a pretty big chunker. So we'll see if we get to that. And then I have Table for Two, which is a collection of short stories. I believe this is based loosely on some of Towles's other books. I do really enjoy Towles's writing, or at least I really enjoyed A Gentleman in Moscow. That was probably one of my favorite books in the year that I read it. So I'm hoping that I'll find some magic with some of his other books as well. And then continuing on with that book of the month stack, I have The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. I have heard so many wonderful things about Kent Kruger's writing. I have not tried any of his books yet. I picked this up on a whim, not knowing much about him, and it is set on Memorial Day 1958 as the people of Jewel, Minnesota gather to remember and honor the sacrifice of so many sons in the wars of the past. The half-clothed body of wealthy landowner Jimmy Quinn is found floating in the Alabaster River. Investigation of his death falls to Sheriff Brody Dern, a highly decorated war hero who still carries the physical and emotional scars from his military service. Even before Dern has the results of the autopsy, vicious rumors begin to circulate that the killer must be Noah Bluestone, a Native American WW2 veteran who has recently returned to Jewel with a Japanese wife. As suspicions and accusations mount, and the town teeters on the edge of more violence, Dern struggles not only to find the truth of Quinn's murder, but also to put to rest the demons from his own past. So this sounds like it could potentially be interesting. I'm a little nervous because some of the storyline sounds a little bit cliche to me, but based on some people that I have very similar reading taste to, having told me that he's a fantastic writer, I'm willing to give him a chance. Then I have Middletide by Sarah Crouch. So it says, in this gripping and intensely atmospheric debut, disquiet descends on the small town after the suspicious death of a beautiful young doctor, with all clues pointing to the reclusive young man who abandoned the community in chase of big city dreams, but returned for the first love that he left behind. I'm not sure if this is going to be the type of book for me. It could go one of two ways. I could either really enjoy this because Sarah Crouch did something really unique and different with this concept, or I'm going to find everything in this really cliche and overdone. I've been hearing pretty good reviews about this, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy this as well. Then I have Love in Color by Bolu Babalola. This is mythical tales from around the world retold. Highborn Nigerian goddess who has been beaten down and unappreciated by her gregarious lover longs to be truly seen. A young businesswoman attempts a great leap in her company and an even greater one in her life. A powerful Ghanaian spokeswoman is forced to decide whether she should uphold her family's politics or be true to her heart. In her debut collection, internationally acclaimed writer Bolu Babalola retells the most beautiful love stories from history and mythology with incredible new detail and vivacity. Although Babalola focuses mainly on the magical folktales of West Africa, she also reimagines Greek myths, ancient legends from the Middle East, and stories from long erased places. This sounds fantastic to me. Honestly, I've been on such a kick with short story collections this year. I have read so many fabulous short story collections, and this really sounds like it's right up my alley. I don't usually necessarily go for romance, and I know some of these stories are romance related, but I love that this is going to incorporate myths and stories from so many different cultures. In particular, I love that this is going to highlight West Africa. I love African literature, and I'm really looking forward to delving into this. Down to my last three books. So I have Blue Sisters by Coco Malors. This was a recent Book of the Month pick. I have not read Malors before, but this was a book that was getting an awful lot of buzz. Three estranged sisters return to their family home in New York after their beloved fourth sister's death in this unforgettable story of grief, hope, and the complexities of family. So I love a good family drama. I love a good exploration of grief. I think that this is going to be really interesting because it is talking about the grief of a sister losing another sister. It's not a romance. It's not like losing a parent. It's a unique relationship. And so I'm looking forward to getting into this. And then I have Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang. So this is a book that I actually picked up in my January Book of the Month box in 2024. This was a New Year's release from them, and it's a collection of short stories. And so I didn't get to it in January, but I feel like it's a good book to end the year on and kind of start the new year with. So this may be the very last book that I read in 2024, intentionally. And it says, a woman known only to her neighbors as the Asian recycling lady collects bottles from the streets she calls home. An unfulfilled housewife in Shanghai finds a secret outlet for her ambitions in an undercover gambling den. Two strangers become something more through the bond of mistaken identity. Adeptly attuned to the mystery of living, Tomb Sweeping invites us to consider whether one person can ever entirely do right by another. So I haven't heard that much buzz about this, but it sounds interesting. And again, I've been on a good streak with short story collections, so hoping this is a hit. And my final Book of the Month selection for this TBR is The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. So this is a domestic thriller set in a neighborhood during a barbecue, and a son falls out of a window and is in the hospital. His mother is sitting beside his bed, keeping vigil, but everybody's wondering if she has something to hide. I picked this up solely because I really love The Push by Ashley Audrain. I typically am not a big fan of domestic thrillers, typically would not pick up a book with the synopsis or the summary that this one has. There were a lot of things about this that I'm like, this isn't necessarily the book for me, but I'm gonna give it a shot just because The Push was a book that really stuck with me, and I'm hoping that this one will be good. I haven't heard as many rave reviews about this one as I did about The Push, so I'm trying to temper my expectations. So that being said, those are all of my selections for the month of December. You've heard about the books that I'm trying to prioritize on my Netgalley shelf and the ones that I'm trying to prioritize from both Aardvark and Book of the Month. I feel like I have some good selections in there. Let me know if you've read any of these books, whether it's the Netgalley ones or my physical ones, and what you thought of them. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Tell me everything except for spoilers. And let me know if any of these books are books that you're wanting to read too. I'm always happy to buddy read things if we're reading something similar in the month. So if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up, comment down below. Like I said, tell me about your TBR and the things that you think about my TBR. And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button down below, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss a video. And that way we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.